Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WITV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey, friends, come and join me for a minute and imagine how fabulous you'd feel living the unique and distinct life that you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love, in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. That's what I call a life of significance. And I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can my friend Mike Bowen. And he's here to share his unique and distinct journey to his life of significance. But before we bring him on, I'd like to share a poem that we created to thank him for being our guest star today. It's called Trail Magic. It goes like this. There's a phrase on the trail that cyclists know well, a holy whisper they struggle to tell. They call it trail magic. It's the meal when you're empty, the water when you're dry, the stranger who stops and looks you in the eye. It's fellowship forming where no one's rehearsed, just kindness appearing when you need it the worst. That's trail magic. But it's more than provision from generous hands. It's mountains at sunrise, vast rivers and lands. It's wildflowers blazing where grizzlies roam free, a sky so enormous it drops you to your knees. Creation declaring with thunderous voice, you're small, but you're seen. Rejoice, rejoice. That's trail magic. And then there's quiet. The miles of reflection, the wind and the climb, the wrestling with sorrow, with regret, and with time. It's setting things down that you once held tight. It's choosing to surrender over one more long fight. It's vision that's fading, yet purpose made clear. It's finding your courage when you face what you fear. That too is trail magic. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. That was really well said, and I appreciate you putting the effort in to do that. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So get us started by telling us what you're doing these days to make your mark of significance on the world.
Yeah. Whew, that was good. Yeah, I'm in an interesting phase of life right now, Matt. I'm 2/3 done with what started as a highly personal 3-year self-development mission that I call it. And that includes 3 cross-country bicycle trips in 3 years. And in the context of a long history with addiction and depression and a difficult diagnosis. And that, or my mission, I suppose, has worked so well that I've grown, and it's changed me so much to where I'm trying now to turn around and share what I've learned with others. And sharing my story is where I'm beginning that journey.
Very good. So you say you're 2/3 through. So you've done 2 trips. You have one more coming up.
That's right. Yeah. Do you want me to tell you what I've done so far?
Just give us a quick summary of the first 2 and what the third one is.
Yep. So in 2024, I did what's known as the Trans-America Bicycle Route, and I flew to Virginia from my home in Oregon, and over 81 days rode my bike from Virginia to the West Coast. As you might imagine, there's a lot of stories from those 81 days, and it was a big adventure for sure. And then last summer in 2025, I rode what's known as the Great Divide mountain biking route. And that is a mostly dirt or gravel path that runs from Banff, Canada to Mexico. And so I rode that last summer, and it was 60 days and the best experience of my entire life. And I experienced a lot of trail magic, as the poem indicated. And this year I'll ride from Washington to Maine on Trans-America Northern Tier. So 3 cross-country bicycle trips in 3 years. And there's a whole backstory behind it, and I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah. So are these journeys about the distance, or are they about transformation, or are they about something else?
Definitely about transformation. Yep. I had a really low point in my life with a long struggle with mental health, anxiety, depression, and addiction to alcohol. And also in 2022 was diagnosed with an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. And
explain to our audience, not necessarily the science behind it, but what I saw in your video, what is predicted to happen to your vision? Try to just explain that briefly if you can.
Yeah, totally. So I call it RP for short, and it essentially creates blind spots in my vision, and those blind spots are getting bigger and bigger over time, unfortunately. And
Is that
it
happening now for you?
it is. It is. And even in the last few weeks, I've started to notice it, unfortunately, a little bit more. And next week, I'll go to Portland and do my annual exams with all kinds of testing. So the blind spots are getting bigger and bigger, which is ultimately creating a straw vision, only having my central vision remaining.
Mm.
Um, it's a disease that you inherit through your genes, but with my history of being adopted, I had no idea that that was in my genetic lottery.
Mm.
And unfortunately, there is no cure for the disease. So RP created a sense of urgency to do these trips and pursue my dreams as my vision fades.
Yeah. And so a surprise from was not on your plan was something called Eyes on the Horizon. So tell us, what is Eyes on the Horizon, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so Eyes on the Horizon is an upcoming full-length documentary film that I'm the subject of and also a co-producer. And I had a career working in the past for three different universities for their outdoor recreation programs. And one of my former students that I keep up with works for a film crew in Nashville and said, "Hey, let's do, a film on your story." And I was pretty opposed to it at first because my mission was really I just I was so frustrated and I was so desperate for change in my life is a better way to put it. I decided to do this mission to get myself on track, to develop myself, to grow, to fulfill my potential. And slowly and surely, I started realizing that this was a story worth telling and to kind of let other people in and be vulnerable. And it's been a lot of work and it's really exciting. We're not quite sure. We're in post production right now and we're not quite sure where it's going to land on the streaming platforms and film festivals in the fall. But hopefully, the story will be told and be public this year at some point.
Very cool. And so another thing that's sprung out of this new from your mission is speaking. And so, what is it? How is speaking to other groups about mental health and sobriety and vision loss? How has that impacted your life? And what message do you feel people need right now about addiction and depression?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. It's life is a funny thing, Matt, as you know, and I was so naive about mental health, and I just understood it to mean take your vacations and take care of yourself. And I thought it I thought it was maybe only the scarier, schizophrenia things that you hear about. But I've really learned that everyone is on a mental health journey. And long story short, I suffered from severe anxiety, depression for a long time. I had sleeplessness, irritability, chronic fatigue, um, really heavy brain fog, and just the way my brain worked wasn't the same.
Mm.
And I just couldn't figure out why I felt so poorly for so long. And I thought if I could sleep, I would get my spontaneity back and my mental focus. And I just never slept well. And the truth was, I was drinking alcohol every night as a way to kind of escape. And I was in my own mental prison. Um, and I had a really powerful experience on July 4th, 2023, here in Central Oregon, where I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I reframed it in a way where I wanted to say yes to feeling well instead of just quitting alcohol.
Mm.
It came from somewhere in a deeper place, deeper than my mind or my heart, somewhere in the core where it was true repentance. And it was like, I've gone this way and I'm going this way now. And I've never even been tempted to go back. I was so done with it. And I say all that to say the experience that I've had with my sobriety and getting out of that anxiety, depression, has really motivated me to share that message. And I'm trying to connect with other people who feel the same way, and reduce the stigma about addiction and mental health. It's a very human experience, and I love this quote that I recently heard. I'd love to share. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. the opposite of addiction is connection.
Ah, that's great. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
um, addiction is it's almost it's not this the substance is not the issue, it's the behavior, right? So you can give up alcohol and still be a raving addict. You just
hmm
use a different substance or a different thing.
hmm
So I like that quote. And then one more thing on your speaking, how do you talk about your vision loss without falling apart? I don't think I could do it.
I'm I love my eye doctor, and I'm really excited to see her next week. And I'd be lying to say I'm not a little nervous to see what they find. There are some days where I think I'm still mostly okay, and lately I've had some more experiences where even in the last couple of days, I'm playing with my dog, and I'm looking all around, and then she's right there, but she was in my blind spot, and so um, it's a challenge, and a lot of doing these bike trips and all these other challenges I've put myself through is to build resilience to endure this journey as well. Um, I have peace with it, and the good news is that it is a slow decline over time. And again, the bad news is there's no known cure.
Mm,
So, and in 2022, when I was diagnosed, I was it was good to have answers for the symptoms I was having. I
mm,
have light flares that go through my vision, and then as we talked about the blind spots, sometimes I just don't see things. But I didn't really fully accept that diagnosis because I was still in the throes of my addiction and depression.
mm.
Um, but I've had more acceptance about it now, and just taking one day at a time. But
Yeah.
it is hard.
Very good. One last thing on what you're doing these days is you have a very simple lifestyle, van life and minimalism. Describe how radically simple your lifestyle is and tell us why did you choose this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, by the way, I love that you recently had Joshua Becker on your podcast. I really loved his book, Things That Matter. And if listeners are interested in minimalism, I highly encourage going that route. He'll put it more eloquently than I. But you know, in my view, my lifestyle is incredibly simple. I've lived out of my camper van for 5.5 years, and it creates the margin in my life to where I'm able to pursue these passions. And I think that's the bottom line that Joshua would say as well. Um, if I was in a full time job and a mortgage and et cetera, there's no way I could do 3 cross country bicycle trips in 3 years. And it started as when I needed to leave my career and come to Oregon and start my life over and figure out my mental health, which obviously I ultimately did through sobriety. It kind of started off as necessity and then morphed into something that I've really enjoyed and works for me, especially in light of my time sensitive diagnosis and wanting to pursue these passions.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Well, I've been full time in that sucker for it'll be 3 years in March, and there is just describe the audience the freedom. You say somebody might call up and say, "Hey, Matt, can you come to the Del Valle High School reunion in Northern California in April?" Yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to drive
Mhm.
down to Disneyland, do Disneyland with my kids, and then drive up to Northern California, and everywhere I go, I have everything I need with me, including my dog.
Yep, yep. People sometimes laugh and they say, I thought you had to pack up for this trip, and then I realized you didn't have to pack at all. And I just said, no, I just turned the ignition on and started driving.
Yep.
It does work for me. A lot of times, just logistically, I love spending the night at the trailhead and waking up and going for a morning run or a morning bike ride, and you're already there. I wake up in the morning and I can throw sticks. I have a three-legged German Shepherd named Charlie, who's been in the van with me for a long time, and she's great. I wake up and I'm already on a gravel road where she can exercise and breathe fresh air. So it really works for me. And I still drive during the daytime, and due to my eyesight, I don't drive at night. So in the winter months, my logistics are a little tough, but it's just something I deal with.
Mike, due to my age, I don't drive at night. So see, we all have our limitations.
We do.
All right, Mike. So let's move on to a little mathematics so our friends all around the world can get to know you through our happy formula. It's very simple, but it's also very powerful, and it goes like this: power plus purpose equals happy. So let's start with power. What are your personal practices for building up all the power that you need to get things done, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, or emotionally? In other words, Mike, what do you do on a regular basis to create all the power you need to take great care of yourself and your loved ones and still have plenty of margin left over to be a giver to others?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, my simple answer to that is the way that I find power is to do hard things.
Mm.
I think about the book Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter. I highly recommend that. It's one of those books that just really, it just felt like it was written for me and where I was in my life. And I think in modern day America, especially, we're so comfortable and we can be in temperature control 24/7. We drive cars with air conditioned seats. We lay in comfortable beds, comfortable office chairs. We never, it's easy to fall into a status quo where our lives become really easy. When is the last time you heard someone say, I've just been status quo for the last year and I've had a lot of personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, And so for me and my story, we've talked about getting sober on July 4th and how I was in this mental prison with all those depression symptoms. And Matt, within a few days of just quitting drinking alcohol, I started to feel so much better.
Mm.
And instead of putting this, toxic poison in my body every night and just stewing on all my problems, I basically let myself out of that prison. And I was just so happy. I had been in a negative spiral, and when you feel poorly, you think poorly, and then you feel poorly because you think poorly.
Yep.
And as it's been stated by so many others before me, a lot of times alcohol addiction can be a shame cycle. But I,
Yep.
but I, but my sobriety started changing that, and I started
Yep.
becoming a little bit more physically active. I started feeling better, and I'll tell a quick story to hammer this home. Um, During my drinking days, I didn't run for 12 years. I
Mm.
didn't, I didn't break stride. And before that, I ran a couple half marathons. I remember thinking, would I ever run a marathon? And it was like, no, too far, not interested, not my thing. And on Thanksgiving Day, just not too long after I got sober, I was trying to burn some calories before, Thanksgiving meal. And I went out for a run here in Oregon, and I was thinking about how much better I felt. And I just was so thankful. And it was Thanksgiving Day. It was fitting. I didn't plan it that way.
Yep.
And I just kept going and I kept running and I kept running. And I just felt great. And I took a lot of breaks, but I'll never forget, I got to 20 miles and I had tears running down my face. And I just thought, I'm going to run a marathon today.
Yeah.
And it hurt. And I don't recommend it without any training, but
Correct.
I just kept going, and I must have cried 5 or 6 times, but it really felt like a celebration of freedom, of getting out of that mental prison. And that day changed my beliefs. And I used to believe that alcohol wasn't hurting me, and now I believe that I could, that my body was capable, and if I kept going, um, I was capable. And I've tried to run. I have run several other marathons and just do hard things to kind of grow that muscle. So when I think about power, I think about those challenges that I put in front of myself just to keep convincing myself that this body is capable and the mind is capable. We just gotta believe it.
Yeah, yeah, very good. All right, Mike, let's discuss my favorite power generating concept called a Kaizen state of mind. It's this beautiful Japanese idea that small incremental improvements add up over time to yield great big results. And it's so powerful because it's about your mindset, not circumstance. Kaizening life is knowing I can always do something better tomorrow than today. And it creates a gentle, relentless, never ending power that keeps lifting me higher day after day after day, even coming into my 65th year. So, Mike, how does Kaizen in your life help increase your power to continuously become more so you can continue giving more and impact even more lives?
Yeah, I love it. And the simple answer to that is I give myself a little bit of affirmation. And It's funny. I think this is the first time I've ever shared this publicly, but for me, what works is I just go and I just say, "Good job, dude." And
Mm.
it's something anyone can do. Just like when I talked about power, anyone can do hard things and experience that growth through challenging yourself. For me, that Kaizen that helps my momentum keep going. And whenever I'm on a run, every time my watch pings 1 mile, 2 miles, it's like,
Mhm.
good job, dude. You're on the right path. I was on the wrong path, or a path that I didn't want to be on for so long. And whew, just so thankful to be on this different path. And, you know, it's an amazing contrast. When I was in my addiction and depression, again, guilt and shame perpetuating itself. And then now I'm trying to have more self-respect and self-love. And so whether it's running a mile, or sometimes as I'm finishing my day, I'm going to bed, I'll just try to give myself a little bit of that affirmation to keep
Yeah.
my positive momentum going. And it can be as simple as, hey, you called your dad when you said you would. You were transparent in your therapy appointment with your therapist. Good job. um, you got out of bed and you ran your dog at the time you said you would. It's just, there's so many small things. And I just think by recognizing it and giving it to yourself, it helps keep that positive momentum going.
Yeah,
Anyone.
yeah, you remind me that. So I was been thinking about this. If you do, I just wrote about this yesterday. ob- um, Obedience, not outcomes. So if you do the work that you're supposed to do that day, and you don't worry about the outcome, you're going to have a good day. And you can't control the outcome, but you can control the work. So I think
Mm-hmm.
Kaizen is like with sobriety too. If you drink and you're an alcoholic for 13 years and you decide you're going to stop drinking, you put the can down and you have one day. Then one day builds to two, two builds to three. That's Kaizen. And now, if you're into 1,000 days, man,
Mm-hmm.
you slip because you've built this sobriety. And so I
Yep.
think that's what it is. It's just building one step on another, doing what you're supposed to do day after day, thing after thing, moment after moment, and it feels good. And then you can give yourself the little pat. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Matt. I think it's super true. Sometimes when I talk about doing these cross country bicycle trips, people, you can tell they're like, what? But what I think is in their head is they think about the 4,000 miles,
Right.
but it's one day at a time.
Yeah.
And yes, I've had some really tough single days. Lots of stories from that, with wind and rain and hail and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And when I was addicted and depressed, I wasn't showing up for myself. And you're right. It's that momentum. And then, as the idea says, small changes over time creates big results.
Yeah.
I think about the book Atomic Habits, I believe by James Clear. Um, in terms of self-help books, I know there's 1,000 of them out there. It just rang really true and simple. And our habits compose our lives, and it's more evidence to what you just said.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of power there.
Yeah. Very good. All right, let's move on to purpose. That's the second part of our happy formula. And I've observed that major life transformations, that great big discovery of purpose, often comes from devastation, addiction, abuse, disease, death, disaster. Something horrible strips a life to its core, resulting in a big and often unexpected change. However, in my book, Turning Inspiration into Action, I share the transformational process that I've used to discover the purpose of my life using inspiration. So, how about you, Mike? Was there a specific moment or event or crisis or inspiration that revealed to you the unique and distinct purpose you're meant to live?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on purpose, and I think folks might think the day I got diagnosed would have been that moment, but it really wasn't. I wasn't in a well enough place to really confront that. And that's one of the most powerful things I've learned is we have to turn and acknowledge the thing we're avoiding. So after that really powerful, surprising night that I ran that, or day that I ran that marathon, I was having dinner one night and I was just reflecting on my life, and I had this crazy thought, and it was in my own voice. I think it came from myself. It could have been from God or an external source. I'm not sure, but the voice said, You moved to Oregon to find wellness, but you messed around for 3 years. For the next 3 years, you're going to do 3 big trips.
Hmm.
And it was a lot more than just a call to action. It was a surrender to this internal pull. And for so long in my adult life, I always wanted to be more adventurous. I wanted to pursue those things that light me up, you know. And I just said, okay, now's the time. I knew I had my sense of urgency with my eye disease diagnosis. Um,
So what
or
was
and
the chronology between the voice and the diagnosis and the putting the beer can down on July 4th, 2023? What's the
mhm.
chronology?
Yeah, so long history of addiction and depression, diagnosis in 22, but I wasn't really quite ready to accept it. Um, Sober July 4th, 2023, marathon, and then the voice, maybe like December 1st, 2023. Um, so that's how it all happened. And then after that, um, I was a man on a mission because I had a mission. And I'll never forget, Matt, that spring, I was incredibly motivated because I had this thing that I really cared about, this purpose in front of me. And I'm living proof. Man, I've lived a lot of years with no purpose, and it's not that much fun. And then having a purpose, even for a cross country bike trip,
Yeah.
that's just what I needed in my own life journey at the time. I was getting up early, going to yoga, running, riding my bike, going to the gym. It's a tremendous feeling, and when you chase that purpose, you kind of you work really hard, and then you kind of look up and you say, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
Um, and
E-
yeah,
Even in a struggle, when you're going through really difficult times in your purpose, I can remember as an athlete, we just about killed ourselves in practice, training our bodies and then playing football. And I mean, brutal. Um,
mhm.
and it's then after practice, it's like, you're hanging out and say, man, that was the greatest thing ever. Wow, that was awesome. And no, you guys are nuts. But when you
Yep,
find purpose, you can walk through glass.
yep, yep, absolutely. And I want to throw in a bit of what's a little bit more of an Eastern philosophy idea, because I think it's powerful. As someone who's I'm so much of a thinker. Sometimes I get kind of lost in my own head, and I think people might be able to relate to that. Like, what's my purpose? And I think oftentimes we look for this grandiose, magnificent answer. And one thing that's brought me some peace is, while my personal mission that we're discussing today has given me a lot of purpose, I just wanted to sprinkle in this idea that I learned it from an author named Thich Nhat Hanh. And the idea is, if I'm walking across the room to get a book, as I walk, that's my purpose.
Hmm.
And as I get the book, that's my purpose. And as I read it, that's my purpose. And it's just one of those ideas that kind of makes my body relax. And it's like, of course, it's the simple, it's what we're doing right now. Um,
Very
man,
zenny. I'm washing the dishes and I
yeah.
can, yeah.
And I'm here now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
That's great. So just I have a few questions on this transition. Take us back to that night, afternoon, July 4th, when you actually set the beer down and you
Mhm.
you didn't drink. Many people listening to this are going to say, "Come on,
Mhm.
how can you just stop cold turkey like that?" So tell what happened internally that enabled that to happen for you.
I'm in therapy still trying to figure it out. But I think I um I had had an experience earlier that spring where I went to a bachelor party, and we just stayed at this campsite for 3 days, and all we did was party down. And I just remember thinking, I guess drinking's always a part of my life. And it made me feel really negative in my body about the idea. And so I did have some success going a week or 2 weeks, and then I would kind of have some more beers, and then I would maybe go a couple more weeks. And so I had been given a taste of it. So it wasn't a true, just crazy, I'm drinking all the time, cold turkey. But I think the suffering I experienced from that addiction, and really just so many hangovers. And it was, I had like a righteous anger.
Mm.
And I was like, that's my life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be me again. And I finally, I think here's the answer. I think I finally wanted to be well more than I wanted to be buzzed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it really did. It felt like I used to sit in this mental prison and my brain would stew on these negative things. And it was comfortable suffering.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that comfortable suffering. Oh, I'm too scared to go out into the unknown. There might be suffering out there that's unknown, but I take it 10 out of 10 days now after this experience, I'll tell you.
Mike, the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence wrote, I'm paraphrasing it, but they wrote that people are more likely to accept their current conditions rather than change them, as long as they are tolerable. If I can just tolerate this behavior, it's better than going out there where I don't know what's going to happen.
It's so common, and I lived it for a long time. And
okay, one more thing I think our audience wants to know is, on the trail, when you're just encountering circumstances that you just don't know how you're going to push through them. Maybe it's the wind, or even in the poem, we wrote the word W-I-N-D. I'm not sure if it's wind or wind. It can work either way. But, going up it's like it's never going to stop. How do you push through? Tell our audience, take us back to one of those just grueling things and how you pushed through it. And then how did that change you?
I've got a lot of those stories. I do think it goes back to the power and to doing those hard things. And you build that actual mental muscle of resilience. But your question prompts me to think about a day leaving Rawlins, Wyoming on Transamerica. And I was a few miles outside of town and it was so windy. I thought about, should I just turn around and go get a hotel? Like, this is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, nah, I'm just going to keep going. And it was so strong. At one point I had to like lean into the wind to stay upright. And at another point it was coming head on so hard. I'm in my easiest gear and I'm just pedaling and I'm going like 3 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It took me 12 hours to ride the 65 miles. And I think it's just the idea that if you keep going, you will get there. And, but if it hadn't have been for all of the experiences leading up to that, I would not have had the same mindset. So, and then that served as another catalyst. Like, I've had hard days in my life since coming home, and I look back and I say, it's a lot easier than that day in Wyoming.
100%. Yeah, very good. All right, Mike, thanks for all that. Now let's take a quick commercial break so our sponsor can spread a little love with our audience.
Are you ready to transform your life? At happyliving.com, we've discovered 4 keys to help you live with purpose, joy, and significance. Unlock your truth with the Happy Quiz. Unlock your happy formula with inspiring stories from the Something Significant Show. Unlock your roadmap to happiness with our free ebook, Making Your Mark of Significance. And unlock your inspired life with our life-changing e-course, The Philosophy of You and Your Inspired Life. This is your time to shine. Go to happyliving.com now and click Unlock the Power of You. Unlock your power. Live your best life. happyliving.com.
Hey, Charlotte, it's time to get ready. Get set. Let's work. Mark your calendars for April 24th and join us for WITV7's Financially Lit and Fit Expo. We're bringing together youth innovators, community leaders, sponsors, vendors, and employers for a powerful day of financial literacy, career readiness, and opportunity. Showcase your brand, connect with motivated students, and make an impact that lasts. Don't miss it. Save the date for April 24th. For more information, visit WITV7.org. WITV7 is empowering minds and building futures.
And we're back, and this is the Something Significant show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Mike Bowen, a former collegiate outdoor leader turned endurance cyclist whose journey from functioning alcoholic to surrendered seeker reshaped his life. After 13 years of addiction and depression, a July 4th surrender sparked sobriety, urgency, and purpose. Now racing against progressive vision loss, Mike rides across America documenting resilience through his forthcoming book and film, Eyes on the Horizon, proving that forward motion defeats despair. Mike, I love how you turn miles into meaning, and I think you're going to love this article called The Science Behind the Power of Giving. It reveals something powerful, that the simple act of giving can become a gateway to discovering your reason for being on the planet. Science confirms that when we give our time, talents, and treasures, it doesn't just help others, it transforms us too. Giving helps us rise above obstacles, helps us find meaning, and even helps us discover our purpose. So, Mike, I updated our formula. Power plus purpose plus giving equals really happy. So how about you? Has giving your time, talents, and treasure been a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose, Mike, and for getting through hardships and for bringing real meaning into your life?
The first thing that comes to my mind is when we give, it means that we have a belief of abundance. And there's a trust there. It would be the opposite of scarcity brain. And not to get sidetracked, but I recently heard a quote that made me think of it. You know, the lower self out of our ego says, I always need more. And our higher self says, how do I serve? So for what it's worth, I thought about that. And I'd love to tell a quick story about giving.
Right.
I experienced so much of this on Transamerica and then so much of it on the Great Divide last summer. And I received a lot of generosity, and I kept trying to give it back in different ways whenever I could. And so it was July 4th, and I was in a tiny town called Wise River, Montana, and had ridden all day, great day on the bike, you know, probably put in 60 miles, whatever it was. And there's one place to eat in town, and it was absolutely packed with people. And I walk in, and sometimes when I walk into like a dark restaurant, it takes me longer for my eyes to adjust. So I'm kind of squinting around. There's people just everywhere. I was like, oh man, I don't see anywhere to sit. And this really kind server just says, I got you. Sit right here. I'll take your order. I'll totally take care of you. And it was great. And as the musician came on stage and started preparing for his show, I just was starting to chat with some really kind people next to me and told them a little bit about my story. And as was custom, I needed to go get, a shower and go to bed early for the next day of bike riding. And when the ticket came, I thought, okay, I've received so much generosity. I'm going to tip the server, 100%. Just another way for me to give back. And I really appreciated her generosity. And so I tipped her extremely well. And then I went to get my jacket to leave. And the people that I had struck up a conversation with gave me a hug and then put $40 in my hand. And I have so many stories where that happened, where I would receive and then give and receive. And it just created this incredible cycle. There's nothing like it. And it's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, that's you can call it trail magic, but that's really life magic. If soon as that mindset of, I'm here for something. For me, Mike, it's like when I take the vision and I put it on others instead of on serving myself, that's the game changer. And if you start these 3 trips and the purpose of it is for your own transformation, okay, that's good. Get you out of addiction and all that, that's good. But if you can use it as a tool to give to others and change others, that's the magic, right?
That's the magic. And that's why I'm talking to you today.
All right. So the science tells us giving brings meaning to our lives, and the joy we feel when we're creating value for others confirms it. But there's something deeper at work, Mike. I believe the magic of life comes when we're giving from living in our purpose. So it's not just the giving, but from your purpose, because that's where joy doesn't just touch the receiver, it flows to the giver too. and even to those witnessing the giving. And something else happens there. Fear loses its grip, self-focus shrinks, peace grows steadier, and hope grows stronger. That all comes from aligning with purpose and becoming more in your purpose so you can give more. So Mike, the audience and I would love to witness what that magic looks like in your life. So sit back, my friend, open your heart and have a listen to what people are saying about the impact that you're making in their lives because you're giving from living in your purpose. One person said, Mike Bowen was the guy I grew up wanting to model so much of myself around. Another said, Mike has always lived with gratitude for the gifts of life, and he has always been purposeful in the way he lives his life. And another said, Mike has a confidence about him that's contagious. Others said he's determined, inspiring, an honest-to-God good guy, outstanding, courageous, a strong athlete, sincere, vulnerable, exceptionally relatable, transparent, thoughtful, and generous, steady, constant, consistent, convicted, resilient, kind, and caring. I'm proud of Mike, and I'm so glad that he's sharing his story with others. By weaving his testimony of faith into a powerful narrative of the Lord's faithfulness, he provided our audience with a profound example of resilience and grace. Another said Mike's presentation was honest, engaging, and deeply human, leaving a lasting impression on our members. Still others said Mike had the entire room completely engaged. Mike Bowen is a speaker of rare authenticity and heart. His story is grounded in growth, perspective, and purpose. I watched the audience and could feel their enthusiasm for him. Each person in the room was tuned in and appreciated his authenticity. And finally, this person said simply, Mike doesn't just give a speech, he shares a piece of his soul. So Mike, how does all that incredible love make you feel?
I didn't expect that. Thank you. Yeah, I really needed to hear that. And I'm just thankful to be sober and be myself again. And yeah, you definitely surprised me there. That's really cool. Thank you. I'll have to, speaking of giving, that was a gift, and I'll have to relax and receive that.
And pay it forward. Folks, that's what this show is all about. We're here, Mike and me and all our guest stars, to encourage you, our listeners, to find that same magic in your own life. Because this is what it does to you. It makes you look like a mess there, like Mike did. And it's available to you. It's available to everyone. And it comes from this great big happy circle. Giving your time, talents, and treasure is a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose. And giving from living in your purpose brings deep joy to you and those around you too. The funny thing about it is you don't even realize it because you're in your purpose. You're just doing what you do. And so giving from living in your purpose brings a deep joy to you and those around you too. It seems that giving leads to purpose and giving from purpose leads to joy. So Mike, if I'm going to capture the entire exponential power of our happy formula, let me tweak it just a tiny bit more to power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you, Mike?
Sounds right. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Let's wrap things up with the lightning round. I love the quiet power of words and how the right quote can meet us maybe on a mountain pass or in a moment of surrender or in the tension between knowing and acting. As I prepared for our conversation, a handful of quotes kind of surfaced, not because they're meaningful, not just because they're meaningful, but because they reflect your journey. Seasons of despair, bold decisions, long miles, fading vision, and the choice to keep moving when stopping would have been easier. So I'm going to read each one to you, Mike, and ask you to share the very first thoughts that pop into your mind. No rehearsing, no polishing, just trail honest truth. Ready?
Yeah.
This first one is from Psalm 34, verse 18. It says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think real powerful change in our lives a lot of times comes from those low places when our defenses, our pride is lowered and we're ready to receive help. We love to think that we have it in our lives. And, it makes me think of C.S. Lewis when he says, pain is God's megaphone.
Yeah. Good. That's it. Okay, this one's from Brianna Wiest. And she said, the interim between knowing and doing is a space where suffering thrives.
Absolutely. That makes me think of failing to really be honest with myself about my addiction. And it's a funny thing to know, because I knew that I had a problem, but there was a lot of suffering in the space between knowing and choosing to address it. And I think while my story is really unique, hopefully a lot of these themes and these truths are applicable to anyone. And I think we all can be really good at avoidance. And what I've learned in life is you can avoid it for so long, and then eventually we've got to really face it. And some people have described it as turning around and facing the dragon that's haunting us behind us. And it's not easy, but I think it's the work that has to be done to find healing and to have growth.
It's the only way out. There's a biblical verse, I won't get it exactly right, but it said basically, once you know what to do and then don't do it, then it's a sin.
Yes.
And that's the suffering. If you know what to do and you don't do it, that doesn't bring you any joy. That brings you suffering.
Yep. Sins of omission, I think that might be called. Yeah.
This is from Nelson Mandela. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward despite it. Face that dragon, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that's spot on for what we're talking about. And, here I am, I'm 2/3 done. I've got another trip, and unfortunately my eyes are a little bit worse, and it is scary. And, I don't have it all together. And, I've been lately actually going through probably the toughest mental health season since I've gotten sober, with heartache from a relationship that didn't work out for the long run. And also this is just a really hard marathon that I'm on. And I think I'm leaning on these experiences that I've had. And, I'm just continuing to move forward into the unknown, and we'll see where it all leads me. And one step at a time, one day at a time.
There you go. This one's a little bit more uplifting. It's from John Burroughs, and he said, I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order.
Oh my goodness. If people are interested, there's so much research in nature immersion, and even walking in a park in a day can help lower blood pressure, lower stress, increase creativity. We live in this world where everyone kind of has advice to give. And what that actually makes me think of is the only thing that I actually feel comfortable in terms of giving advice is I turn my cell phone off one day a week, all the way off. And it's the best day of the week. And inevitably I find myself in nature. There's no distraction, and you get those benefits more. So if people think that's crazy, that's fine. But man, I promise you, it might start being the best day every week by breaking that addiction and connection and just taking a breath in nature, for sure.
Good advice. This is from Confucius. He said, it does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. And you've said the only way to get there is to keep going. Different centuries, same truth. Sounds like you and Confucius might have been good friends. So tell us, what does that quote mean to you, and why has keep going become such a defining principle in your life?
I tried the other way and it didn't work. As pure and simple. When I was in my addiction depression, it's because I was in that mental prison and I was avoiding these harsh or difficult truths about my eyesight, about my addiction, and about my mental health. And it wasn't until I started, being honest and addressing those things. And so I let myself out of that prison with my sobriety, but I can't go back. The cat's out of the bag, and I just have to keep going and see where it all leads me, and really hope that I can help some people along the way.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, this one's from Mary Oliver. She said, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?"
Mm. Yeah, that one hits hard. I think these trips, they are the highlight of something like a very personal self-improvement mission for myself, but it's also pursuing my dreams. And I've been able to do that by the value of minimalism, and there's also a lot of privilege involved in that, and I'm sensitive to that. Not everyone can, but I think what's true is, for many of us, what's keeping us from pursuing our dreams might be ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so that quote kind of says, it could be right in front of you. Step forward and go get it. And
Yep.
my life's been so different ever since I started doing that. Never imagined I would be on a podcast or be in a film. And ever since I just stepped into basically that quote, it's been really cool.
Well, and this leads us right to our show anchor from Goth. He said, "Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now."
Yeah, like that speaks to me. Like, get going.
Yep.
The time is now, and get going. And you don't have to have a difficult diagnosis to take action. And man, so many times I feel fatigued, or I'm not quite sure what my plan is, and I'll put my running shoes on and I'll start going.
Yep.
And then I'll even run 2 miles, and then you get back and you feel so much better, and you just had to get started.
Yep. Yeah, it's like you feel bad. You're supposed to go to the gym. Just convince yourself, I'm going to go to the gym even if I have a bad workout. It's fine.
Yep.
But I'm going.
Yep. You showed
And
up.
you get there, all of a sudden you have a great workout.
Yep. Yep.
Very good. All right, Mike, what I love most about these quotes is the way you responded to them, and that they're not theoretical for you, they're lived. Despair, decision, courage, persistence. You don't just admire these words, you embody them. So as we move from inspiration to application, let me ask you this. For the person listening right now who feels stuck in that space between knowing and acting, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say help is available, whether it's addiction or mental health. If you know that something's going on with the way you feel, there is help available, and it might be hard, but it's also hard sitting in that place of comfortable suffering. And so it's going to be hard one way or another. Those are the cards that we're dealt with human life. But thinking back to the other quotes, this one beautiful life we have, how are we going to spend it? And for me, yeah, hopefully I'm one example that leads folks to motivate to take action. It is possible to go from this place of stuck to pursuing your dreams, and it takes honesty and even forgiveness for yourself and from others, but big change is possible.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Mike. And now, my friends, if Mike's story has inspired you, if it lifted your spirit and encouraged you to keep going through your own hard times, then I invite you to share that energy with our incredible team at WITV7 who make this show possible. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage people in need. Every gift matters, big and small. With your support and their tireless work, lives are being transformed, and our circle of love just keeps expanding. So donate today, because it'll do good and it'll make you feel good too. Mike, I love your honesty and the way you refuse to hide the hard chapters of your story. And I admire your courage, not just to ride across America, but to confront addiction, vision loss, and fear head on. You don't escape life, you ride straight into it, and then you share it with others. And I'm super happy that you've shared your resilient, reflective, and radiant spirit in our show today. So would you please take a moment or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Ooh. Matt, thank you. Those are kind words that I take to heart. And I guess we're talking about my lived experience and my story. I've lived in a place where I wasn't honest, and it didn't work, and it brought suffering. I hope that by sharing this story, people have hope for addiction or mental health, or and especially the mental health of folks who are in the disabled community. You know, I'm obviously on my own journey with my vision loss, but I do believe change is possible in life, and it might take honesty to confront those things, but change is possible. And I think we can find our authentic self by pursuing that thing that lights us up.
Yep.
You know, I think there's probably a lot of people out there who maybe they're an accountant by day, but their real passion is carpentry. And what would happen if they pursued that carpentry more? I'm here to tell you, their life would be radically different. And I think the world would be different as a result.
Yeah, 100% great advice. Thank you, Mike. And friends, it's because of stories like Mike's and listeners like you that we've been named one of the top 100 life purpose podcasts worldwide, ranked at number 17. So thank you. I appreciate your support for our mission and for sharing these stories of inspiration and purpose. I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Mike and reaching folks just like you, ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you, viewers and listeners. If Mike's story stirred something inside you, don't let it end here. You'll find links to social media and all things Mike Bowen. Find him, follow him, support him. Stay tuned to his documentary and book, Eyes on the Horizon. Read his blog, track his next ride, and help bring his film across the finish line with a generous donation. You'll find all his links in the show notes. And if his spirit has sparked something inside you, please share it with someone else who's needing to hear it too. And from me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So go to happyliving.com right now and click Unlock Here and start unlocking the life you were meant to live, one that's filled with purpose and joy and real significance. And as you start unlocking, think about what we can do together, you and me, to improve the happy of your world, one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are amazing, and this is the Something Significant Show. And we're out.